Hi book besties! Welcome back to Love Yourself. I'm Tracy, and in the last few months I was participating in Big Book Summer and some other challenges, and right now I'm on Herkyed, which is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, which goes from July 7th. It started July 7th and it goes till July 6th of next year. So I am participating in that, but I had a huge focus this summer specifically on reading big books. And I made a list of 15 big books that I wanted to read from Memorial Day until Labor Day. And I officially read 11 and I started 2 more. But actually that's not true. I did read 11, but one of them was not on my list of 15, and so I read 11 total, but only 10 that were on my list, and then I started 2 more that were on my list, which means that I still have 3 other ones that I haven't started, but I did want to go over the ones that I did read and what I thought about them. And I will say that doing this Big Book Summer Challenge did force me to read some books I probably would have put down. So that's good and bad. Like, it's so hard because I feel like you should read for enjoyment and you should be reading what you want to read, but I also feel like there are books that I couldn't stand that still made me think and got me to a place where I knew what I did and didn't like. Like, it's always good to welcome things you don't like so that you know what you don't like too, as important as it is to welcome things you do love. So good news is I also got through them. They were the books that I disliked, one is by a very hyped author that I had never read before, and one is a very hyped book. So I'm going to just go up the list. So I'm going to start at the books I unfortunately did not get to read, which is Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth, The Love Songs of W.E. Du Bois, which is by Henri Fagnon Jeffers, and then We the Living by Ayn Rand. But I am still going to read those, probably not this year, except for Carve the Mark. I really want to read Carve the Mark, and it is the smaller version of those. The 2 books that I have started but I haven't finished are Samantha Shannon's The Priory of the Orange Tree. I am only on page 29. I did start it, but I started it reading it physically while I was also reading A River Enchanted. And they're not the same story, but they're both about, like, this one goes back and forth between East and West, or North and South. I think East and West. And A River Enchanted also has, like, it's divided. It is East and West. It's divided between East and West. So, like, the country itself, or the island itself, not the story. But I couldn't read both of them at the same time. So I was listening to one and reading the other, and it just didn't work. And I really got into A River Enchanted. So we're going to talk about it. But yeah, so I haven't finished Priory of the Orange Tree. It's a beast. I don't know if I'm going to try to finish it by the end of the year, or if I'm going to restart it at a different time. We'll see. Time will tell. The other book that I started and haven't finished because I literally just started it a few days ago, but I did not get done with it by today, is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Or if you listen to it audibly, because I do have the book, and I like to do that. I like to read and listen audibly and go back and forth, because once I get into a book, I want to consume it. So I'll have it, like, at my house for when it's time to read, and I'll have it in my car for when it's time to go places. So The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is Evelyn Hardcastle as well, if you are listening audibly. And I am about 100 pages into this, and it is good. It's written very well. I just don't know what else is going to happen, and it's an interesting plot. So I don't want to talk about it too much until I finish it. I'm probably going to finish that one this year though, because it is smaller. And then now I'm going to go, so I broke my 11 into groups. So there's 2 books that I really did not like and would not have finished normally. And then there's 3 books that I thought were okay / pretty good. And then there are 6 books that I loved. So let's get into those. So the book that I couldn't stand the most, which I don't have, and I'm very glad I didn't buy it because I've thought about it a lot. I've heard really good things about this book. I was so disappointed, was Gideon the Ninth. I'm really sorry. By Tasmyn Muir, I believe. I could not get into it. I felt like the characters weren't fleshed out at all. There's a lot going on in this world that's supposedly in space, but I don't remember anything telling me about it being in space. I felt like sometimes I wasn't getting something, but then I so clearly saw plot twists that they did that I don't know what's going on with it. I didn't love it. I'm really sorry. Like, I want it to be better. It sounds like a good premise, but it wasn't what I wanted. So, the other book, I really enjoyed the first half of this book by Stephen King. I had never read anything by Stephen King. This is not the book to start with, based on things I know about him, which is Fairy Tale. This came out last year or the year before that, I believe 2023. And it clocks in at 598 pages. So, big book summer is anything 400 pages or more. So there is like Boys in the Boat is on here further up the list. It's exactly 400 pages, and Ember in the Ashes is what we're going to talk about next. And it's, I think, exactly 400 pages, or like 401. But there are some bigger books in here too, like Prairie the Orange Tree is almost 800. Yeah, so it just depends. But I picked up Stephen King's Fairy Tale. I really wanted to read a Stephen King book. I follow Books Are Sick by Nick, who is amazing. And he loves Stephen King. And so I was like, I'm finally going to give this a chance. But not anything too scary. And I didn't find this scary, and I really liked the story in real life, but the fairy tale land was a lot, and it was very detailed, and I legit did not really care about the fairy tale plot at all. So the real life portion is about 200 pages, and then it picks up at the end. But the fairy tale portion is like 400 pages, and it wasn't my cup of tea. So that is that book. Then I have books that I liked, but I wasn't in love with. So that is an Ember in the Ashes. I actually really enjoyed the book. Like, I couldn't put it down. But then once it was over, I was like, dude, literally everything that's happened in this book is horrifying. Like, nothing goes right for these 2 people, and my main character, like, not my main character, my favorite character wasn't one of the 2 people you follow. However, one of my book besties told me that my favorite person, does end up having her own storyline where you see things from her perspective and her point of view later on in the series. So I'm really excited about that. The next book is Name of the Wind, and Rothfuss. Patrick Rothfuss is who that's by. Yes, Patrick Rothfuss. It is the number 1. It's the first book in the series, The King Killer Chronicle. And I feel like I would have liked this book a lot if it had just followed the boy, and you get to have him like tell you his story. You follow him, you see what's going on. It's a really interesting book as far as things that happen to him, but they don't. They start it out where he's an adult and he is like losing who he is, and I'm sure there's a reason, and the series is going to bring that into it, but he ends up telling you his story, and it's long-winded, and I feel like he's just mansplaining, and he thinks that he's really amazing and his story's worth telling. And that gets cumbersome for me because 600 pages into a book, I'm like, dude, if you killed a king, like, where is that? Why are we still in your college years? Like, and he is a flawed character. He makes a lot of mistakes, and it gets him in a lot of trouble that he somehow always gets out of. Which is fine. Like, I'm here for flawed characters, but I'm not here for stupidity. And so, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this book. Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's why it's a medium book. So, this next book is close. So, it's Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. It's the book that wasn't originally on the list, and I read it for Herkyed, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, for my summer book for the season of summer, and also a book club book that I read, and it clocks in at just over 400 pages, or maybe 400 pages. And I'm not a romance reader generally, but this was cute, and it dealt with a lot of family scenarios and people pleasing and other things that I won't go into detail about because I don't want to ruin it for people. But it was cute, and it's about a traveling nurse and a guy who put something on Reddit called Am I the Asshole? And she ended up messaging him to ask my question, and they talk and then have a romantic relationship later on. So it was really cute. I liked it, and it had some heavy stuff in it too, which life does. Like, you could be going through the best romance of your life, but life's still gonna get in the way and put you through some ringers. So yeah, it was a good book overall, and I think I liked it more than I anticipated liking it, and that's why it's close to being like in the I really loved this, because I was so surprised that I really loved it. But at the end of the day, it's still a romance. It's still kind of cheesy. I'm still gonna put it in the middle. So let's talk about books that I loved. So the first one is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which was devastating, and putting my, like, I can't even imagine, but this is about a teenager and the things that she goes through, and her best friend getting shot by a policeman, and her standing up for herself and the things that she goes through with that. And I can't even imagine, like, even now, like, as an adult, being able to stand up for myself if I've went through that. Like, it would be so scary. And the injustices in this book are heartbreaking, and I recommend that anyone should read it. I haven't watched the movie yet, but I am probably going to in the winter. I only watch movies in the winter when it isn't nice out. So it was an amazing book, and I really enjoyed it, and the content that it had in it. So yes, but it is just a really devastating story with hope, underlying hope, which is good. The next book is, and I don't have it, and I thought that I had this book. I've seen it at Goodwill so many times, and I never get it because I always think I have it, and I don't, and I'm really sad about it because I loved it. And it is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles, and it is about a guy in Russia in the 1920s who gets confined to a hotel. He can't leave. He's pretty much on house arrest for the rest of his life. And the way that his life twists and turns as people from the outside world come into it, which is really, it's a good book. I really enjoyed it. And one of the main reasons I read it is because Ewan McGregor is doing a mini-series about it, which he already did, but I haven't watched it yet either. But I'm really excited to see how he portrays the main character. So I'm really excited for that. The next book is Lonesome Dove, which I don't have. I borrowed it from the library. It's gigantic. I couldn't even believe it was at the library because I don't see it ever. So Lonesome Dove by Larry Mcmurty. It's the first one in a series, and I feel like so many people have been talking about Lonesome Dove, but I have not heard of anyone else reading the rest of the books. And I'm kind of interested. Lonesome Dove was really good. At first, it kind of hit a little differently because it was written by an older gentleman. Like, he might not be old, he might not have been old then, but he's older now. Like, he's generationally old, and so some of the things that he says doesn't hold up to this generation. But back in the day, like, this country, this like place that they were in, it makes sense that it was the way it was. But it's 900 and something pages, and the first 400 is a lot of setup where you really get to know the characters and their background, and they are going from Texas to Montana because someone mentioned it, but then that person didn't even want to go, so I don't really know why they're going, but that happens. Like, people get a wild hair, and then someone's like, oh yeah, let's do that, and then before you know it, no one really wanted to do it, but you're all doing it anyway. Has it happened to you? It's happened to me. Okay, so they all went to Montana, and it is really good. It's about love and life and how you can literally prepare and be ready for anything your whole life, but it's not going to stop you from eventually dying. Maybe that's not what other people get out of it. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things to get out of it. It's 900 some pages, but that is some of the things you get. Like, luck is gonna bring you down at some point, and it's going to bring you up at others. And as long as you have your friends and your community that you can stand by, and you still also make yourself as useful and resourceful as possible, like, you're gonna get through it to the best of your ability. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's what it was about, kind of. It's about friendships and loving people for who they are. And it's a Western epic, which is not something I ever would read normally. Probably, but probably not. Also, like, I do love some country western movies, like Tombstone. So good. So maybe I could dive into some more western epics and I might actually enjoy them, but it's not something I've ever thought about doing until this very second. So anyway, Lonesome Dove was really good. Then I have Curious Tides by Pascale Lacelle, which is this gorgeous book that my dog ate part of, unfortunately. But it is a gorgeous book. It's really good. It's about a school, and it's about people that have different types of magic, depending on when they were born with the moon, like how the moon was, like waning, waxing, full, when they were born. And it's also about secret societies, and it's about murders, and it's about parallel dimensions. Like, there's a lot going on. It's about people dying / potentially being killed. It's a lot, and it's about grieving, and it's about friendship and family. So and there's some political stuff in there too, and yeah, there's a lot going on in this book, and actually it's really well written, and they're coming out with the second book, I think, in November, and I'm very excited to read it. The next book is A River Enchanted, which I told you we were going to talk about. So River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross is book 1 of a duology, and it's so good. Like, it's written really beautifully. There's a lot of backstory I feel like we don't really get, and we are gonna pretend that we're enemies, but we secretly love each other. I don't know. That's a little weird, but it doesn't matter. So a girl asks a guy to come help her by singing songs to the gods so that they can find out who is taking their lasses. And it is a trip. I really liked it. It was very interesting. I love how the magic of him singing to the gods can hurt his health. I love his dynamic between him and his mom and his sister. I love the mystery of like what's going on, who's taking the girls, when are they going to come back, why are they doing it. There's a war between each side of the island. Is the other side really trying to make peace or not? There's some plot twists, which are very well, like, vaguely mentioned so that you're not super surprised by it, but it maybe isn't exactly what you were thinking. So there's a lot going on in it, and it is really good, and I loved it. And then my favorite of all the books is The Boys in the Boat, which is the only nonfiction book on here, actually. Yeah, that's accurate. The only nonfiction book on here. And it was so good. It's about 9 Americans and their epic quest for gold at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. But also not. Like, it says that, but it follows one main character and his epic quest for everything, like life in general. It follows his whole life and everything that he's done, and it's based, they like were doing stuff in Washington, and I'm in Washington, so it was cool to hear them talk about some stuff that I know about and places that I've been and things that I know. And it's just about perseverance and how if something's really important to you and you put your mind to it, you can do it and overcome anything, no matter what the obstacles are. And it's just very indicative of things that sometimes you need to hear as a person. So it was really good. I loved it. This is also the second book I read out of all of these books, but it is still my number one. It's 3 of 4 5-stars that I've had this year. And those are the books that I read for Big Book Summer from Memorial Day till Labor Day. So I didn't get the full 15 in, but I'm proud of my 11, 10 from the list I originally did. I'm proud that I started 2 more and that those are going to go through, like I'm going to finish them at some point. Overall, did have some not so great reads, but did have a lot of really great reads. So that was good. What did you read for Big Book Summer, and what are you planning on reading by the end of the year? I want to know. It was so nice being back here. I'm really sorry I haven't been on for a long time. My whole life has been insane because everything's changing. Like, everything is changing. And that's fine, and we'll go into that someday in life. But for now, I still have my beautiful book backdrop, and I'm still reading, and it's been so nice having time to do this video. I love you guys. Thank you for coming to Love Your Shelf. Like and subscribe if you want to. Mwah. Have a great day. Namaste.